Now, we're going to basically specify an amplitude response, and then we will try to find a circuit that satisfies that. This is the whole point, essentially, of doing filter synthesis. And so the amplitude response typically will be specified by essentially dividing our frequency bands to a passband, where you can see here, where essentially our main goal is to restrict the variation of my S21 to within some type of a limit. And then there's going to be the attenuation band, where essentially is the band where my S21 must actually be below a threshold. So 40 dB, 50 dB, depending on what the case might be. And finally, there's a transition band where we allow basically the filter to transition from its typical passband to its typical stop band behavior. So I want to give you a few examples here to understand essentially what these specs actually mean for the signal. A lot of times, for example, you will open a textbook and they will say, okay, design me a filter that has maybe a ripple of less than 0.2 dB. That means if I go back to the previous signal, that this S21 here in my passband cannot vary more than 0.2 dB. And when I was studying about filters, I was always wondering, where does this ripple come from? Why do we need it to be less than 0.2 dB or 0.1 dB or 0.5 dB? And honestly, I haven't seen to this day a single textbook that actually addresses that. So I want to give you essentially an example that we worked through this course here of what does it mean. So first, let me give you an example of a perfectly flat ideal response. That means that within my passband, the transfer function, as it's shown here, is actually perfectly flat. No ripple, zero ripple. And then I will assume that this basically has this brick wall drop, and then I have infinite attenuation. So I have here taken a signal. You can see this input signal right here, which is basically a waveform. And I have taken essentially the Fourier transform of this waveform. Essentially, that has three different frequencies, three discrete frequencies. And I will take each one of these frequencies, you can see here omega 1, omega 2, and omega 3, through the transfer function of the filter and see what happens. Now, a typical filter will have some type of attenuation or gain. In this class, it will be attenuation since we're talking about passive filters. And this attenuation is signified by the value k. But the whole point is that this is the same for all of them. So that means that this first frequency will be translated to k times a. The second frequency will be translated again with the same attenuation. And similarly for the third one. So as you can imagine, when I synthesize my waveform at the end, it will practically be the same, except that it is attenuated. So this is an example here. Assuming I have zero amplitude distortion, my output signal is simply an attenuated version. Here's the output signal. It's simply an attenuated version of my input. Life is good. Now let's see what happens if there is actually amplitude distortion. So this is the case that happens in most real-life scenarios. To make things a little bit simpler here, I have assumed a monotonic attenuation of the filter. For example, if you have a typical Butterworth low-pass filter, the actual response of a Butterworth low-pass filter will be something like this. So there is a monotonic attenuation. It's not linear, as it's shown there, but it is something of this nature. If you have a typical Chebyshev filter, on the other hand, it will be some variation before the stop band begins. So in the example I'm talking about here, I assume that the amplitude response is k1 for the first frequency, omega 1, k2 for the second frequency, omega 2, and k3 for the last frequency. And clearly those are not the same. And so that now means that the first frequency will be attenuated by k1, the second by k2, and the third by k3. So guess what? When you basically try to resynthesize the waveform, and remember, it's the waveform that matters, because, for example, this may have been a 16 QAM waveform, which means that in this waveform, I have both amplitude and signal information. So if you basically touch this level here, that means that you are increasing the chance of creating a bit error. So now my waveform is different. So for a simple example I basically did here, look at, interestingly enough, that not all amplitudes are attenuated the same way. This is a severely distorted waveform, as opposed to my original one, which is shown right here. And so that means that now my ripple is directly responsible, guess for what? Bit error rate. So the little known secret is that when you specify the ripple of the filter, you're directly affecting your bit error rate. And that's why we want it to be as little as possible. And things become worse and worse as your waveform becomes more and more complicated. Because if, for example, you're transmitting a 128 QAM, a little difference from here to there means a lot in terms of bit error rate.